Relevant video.
How's your collection coming along?
Well, I don't mean to brag, but it's pretty today.
On September 30th, 2010, Valve released an update to their flagship online multiplayer shooter, Team Fortress 2. Nobody realized it at the time, but this update would go on to be so influential that it arguably transformed the core business model of the gaming industry for the following decade. TF2's Man-Economy update introduced what was then a radical concept.
The hats.
Players could now purchase cosmetic items through in-game microtransactions, but more importantly, they could now trade those items among themselves. Almost overnight, the update ignited a robust free market economy of virtual items, and no items were more valuable than unusual hats. Valve would go on to make a fortune off of TF2's new trading bonanza, an outcome that would ultimately convince them to make the game free to play less than a year afterwards. And despite the variety of items for sale on TF2's storefront, the bulk of Valve's revenue would come instead from what you couldn't purchase.
Yo, break it down for those crepes!
In the very same update, Valve introduced the gaming industry's original Loot Crate, an unlockable mystery box with a 1% chance of granting the player an unusual hat. Items so comically ostentatious that they would instantly catapult you to the center of attention on any server you joined. Unusuals were desired by all, but obtainable by few. The only way to get your hands on one was to spend hundreds of dollars on boxing or to trade with someone who spent hundreds of dollars on boxing. Naturally, this meant that unusual hats didn't come cheap. The most coveted hats and particle effects started to sell for thousands, and eventually, one item ascended to the holy grail of TF2 trading: the Burning Flames Team Captain, the only TF2 item to consistently sell for 5 figures. Ever since this hat was added, it has reigned supreme as the single most desirable item in the game. Out of the hundreds of millions of items in TF2's economy, only 18 Burning Flames Team Captains exist. If you happen to be in the market of obtaining one, it's gonna cost you a pretty penny. Most of you watching are probably recoiling in disgust at how much someone would be willing to pay for a virtual item that you didn't even know existed 20 seconds ago. Why would somebody spend $16,000 on a bunch of worthless pixels?
I mean, more importantly, why would they buy a 2012 Infinity M37? That shit looks fucking bussin'.
Well, conceptually, unusual hats are nothing new. It turns out that plenty of people are willing to fork over a lot more than 16 grand on items that the rest of us would consider worthless.
And not buzzing the bad way, come on now. Buzzing is both ways.
A few years after bringing the joy of crates to TF2, Valve decided to double down on this business model in their newest shooter, CSGO.
Of course they did.
This game took TF2's economy and put it on steroids. Compared to unusual hats' 2 degrees of variation, CSGO weapon skins may differ in quality, wear, kill trackers, and stickers, which greatly influence the item's overall value. Ideal versions of all these variables can drive the prices of top CSGO items into the 6-figure mark. The most expensive item ever sold in the game incorporates an additional variable of rarity. The AK-47's case-hardened skin is far from the most expensive on average. However, pattern number 661 is prized by collectors for its uniform blue top. In addition to this 1 in 1,000 attribute, an AK-47 with minimal wear, a stat tracker, and 4 holographic Titan stickers sold for $150,000 earlier this year. But the most valuable item in all of CSGO is speculated to be another case-hardened weapon. The factory-new Pattern 387 Blue Gem Karambit was last sold to a collector in 2016. Out of the nearly 1 billion items ever unboxed in CSGO, the factory-new Blue Gem is the only one of its kind. Today, some traders appraise its value at $750,000. If you're not interested in dropping the value of a house on a bunch of pixels, then perhaps you'd rather put that money towards a 3-inch piece of paper. Before the age of virtual cosmetics, trading cards were the epitome of intrinsically worthless items.
Isn't the way it works is that there's a pattern of like oil drips or whatever, right? And getting blue is already pretty rare. It has to be the whole thing, the whole stain is entirely on the blade the whole way through, and that's it.
That could potentially cost a fortune. Last year famously saw an explosion in the Pokemon trading card market. In December, a first edition shadowless holographic Charizard card sold for a record $369,000, one of only 122 copies in pristine condition. That record was broken 3 months later in February of this year when a
Chat,
Pikachu
the problem with this is that the standards for grading has changed, and now it is incredibly hard to get gem 10s, isn't it?
Like last week, Pog, it's worth like
It's like I'm fucking
650.
impossible, dude.
That record was broken 3 months later in February of this year when a Pikachu Illustrator card
I
sold
would
for
not regrade my cards.
$375,000. The
I had
promotional
some.
card was only awarded to winners of a 1998 Japanese art competition. Of the estimated 24 billion Pokemon cards in circulation, only about 40 Pikachu Illustrators are known to exist. Magic the Gathering predates the Pokemon trading
Black
card
Lotus.
game by 3 years, giving collectors a bit more time to salivate over the game's most exclusive finds. Magic's holy grail is the infamous Black Lotus, the single rarest card of the game's original release. Earlier this year, a signed Black Lotus from the game's alpha set sold at auction for more than $500,000.
Signed?
While the market for
I'm not a
Magic
fan
and
of signed.
Pokemon cards have had around 25 years to develop, sports trading cards have spent the past century rising in value. In 1909, the American Tobacco Company was ready to release their T206 baseball card series, which they distributed in packs of cigarettes. However, prior to the sale, Pittsburgh Pirates shortstop Honus Wagner revoked the rights to his likeness, forcing the tobacco company to remove his cards from circulation. Due to the sudden retraction, as few as 50 Wagner cards were ever distributed to the public. By the 1930s, the T206 Wagner had already become the most expensive baseball card in the world, selling in 1933 for the present-day equivalent of $1,000.
But
In
it's full of
1991,
tobacco.
one of 3 remaining mint-condition Wagners was acquired by hockey great Wayne Gretzky for nearly $500,000. In 2016, another mint Wagner was sold for $3.1 million, a record that stood until just last year. Currently, the most expensive baseball card is a PSA Grade 9 Mickey Mantle rookie card, which sold for $5.2 million this past January. However, after nearly a century of dominance in the card collecting market, baseball cards look to soon be surpassed by basketball cards in value.
What?
In April
Nobody
of this
buying
year,
none of this
a 1
bullshit.
of 23 autographed LeBron James rookie card tied for the record of $5.2 million.
What?
Dude, you are like a fry cook legend! Will you sign my spatula?
Autographs provide collectors with a much more personal touch to their prized possessions. The value of autographs vary wildly depending on its signee, but the most valuable ones
I
typically
get the
belong to
chills.
figures who are no longer capable of producing them. In 2017, an autographed copy of Albert Einstein's iconic tongue photo was sold for $125,000. In 2018, a baseball featuring 11 signatures from the sport's original Hall of Fame inductees sold for more than $600,000. Some autographs can derive their value from the macabre. On December 8, 1980, Mark David Chapman would receive an autograph from John Lennon moments before assassinating him. 30 years later, that autographed album would sell for $850,000.
That's pretty morbid.
However, by far the most expensive autographs are forged out of time. The signature of 16th century poet William Shakespeare has only been identified on 6 surviving documents. Today, it's estimated that a Shakespeare autograph would sell for up to $5 million. The most expensive autograph ever sold belongs to George Washington, whose personal copy of the Constitution was purchased for nearly $10 million in 2012. Autographs are a form of memorabilia, objects and souvenirs prized for their close association with illustrious people and events.
Well, Elvis,
Sneakers have been one of the most popular forms of memorabilia to collect ever since the meteoric success of Nike's Air Jordan brand in the 80s. In 2020, an original pair of Jordans worn by Michael Jordan himself sold for $560,000, becoming the most expensive sneakers in the world. Of course, the decades-long supremacy of the Air Jordans have recently been challenged by Kanye West's Yeezy brand, and in April of this year, an original pair of Yeezys worn by Kanye at the 2008 Grammys sold for $1.8 million. Memorabilia from the most prestigious athletes and artists can fetch a hefty price, but by far the most expensive memorabilia belongs to the whimsical world of cinema. Darth Vader's helmet from The Empire Strikes Back
all this
sold
money,
for
all
just
these
under
shoes, all these
$900,000
clothes, and we can't get a single good fucking song on that new album. Come on,
in
man.
2019. Marilyn Monroe's iconic white dress from the 7-Year Itch sold for $4.6 million.
I'm just kidding.
But the most expensive memorabilia ever worn by a movie star may be Dorothy's ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz.
I'm playing.
The most recognizable symbol from the most beloved movie of the 20th century was listed at a price of $6 million in 2018.
What?
Although costumes may embody iconic characters more so than any other type of memorabilia, vehicles end up edging them out in price. James Bond's Aston Martin DB5 from Goldfinger sold for $6.4 million. Possibly the most expensive piece of memorabilia ever sold was the General Lee from Dukes of Hazzard, selling for a whopping $9.9 million. When we come back, we'll take a look at what lies beyond the 8-figure mark.
Me?
And just a moment ago, here's what's happened. A fan somehow gets out of the infield area, comes out on the track, and is trying to get Matt Kenseth's autograph.
People ask me all the time, Emp, how can you afford all of these exceedingly rare and special items? Well, everyone, where I get my money isn't important. What is important is where that money doesn't go. Paying some stupid bank a bunch of unnecessary fees. Current is looking to change the face of mobile banking, and this card represents
Guys, I let the ads run
your ticket to accessing more of your money faster. With Current, you can stop throwing away your hard-earned cash on hidden fees and put that money towards something useful, like expensive collectibles. The premium card comes with no minimum balance requirement and up to $100 in overdraft protection.
Tired
of getting ripped off by ATM fees? Current lets you access over 40,000 free ATMs across the US, which can come in handy whenever you find the next hidden gem in the wild. Earn points towards cash back on purchases from thousands of participating vendors for even more savings to fuel your addiction, hobby. And the best part is that Current lets you get paid 2 days early, so you can finally get in on that auction before it expires. So visit current.com/EmpLemon to sign up for your premium card today. Right, and in less than 2 minutes, you could be on your way to owning that sweet 1969 Dodge Charger from Dukes of Hazzard.
No thanks, that's a weird flag.
While the General Lee may be the most expensive piece of memorabilia, it's far from the most expensive automobile. Lamborghini is one of the most recognizable exotic car brands for average Joes to daydream about. A new Lamborghini Aventador will set you back around $800,000, with just over 1,000 units being produced each year. That price is about 10 times less than Lamborghini's most expensive model, the Veneno, only 12 of which were ever sold to the public. However, for the most elite car collectors, a typical Lambo might as well be a Toyota Corolla.
It's 7 o'clock in the morning, and Elon Musk...
Guys, I would buy it, but I went to the... I'm not kidding, I went to the Lambo store. Okay, and they dude, they have none. Everybody's buying them. It's really
It's
hard
7
to find
o'clock
them.
in the morning, and Elon Musk anxiously waits for his golden...
Because of COVID, there's like a weird like car bubble, and everybody's like collecting cars and shit, and all the cars are being sold above MSRP, which is so weird.
Payoff.
They're flying off the shelves.
I expect to receive a car that I've just bought, which is called the McLaren F1.
In the 1990s, the McLaren F1 set the record for the fastest top speed reached by a production car, and has been prized by collectors ever since. Including special variants, only 71 McLaren F1s were ever sold to the public.
Is that the Twitter anime
recent
guy?
Sales of the model are now approaching the $20 million mark. The most expensive supercar right now is the ultra-rare Pagani Zonda HP Barchetta, listed at a price of $23.5 million. However, the title of the most expensive automobile in the world belongs to fellow Italian automaker Ferrari. In 2018, a 1963 Ferrari 250 GTO sold for $70 million.
Why?
Truly showing that old money still reigns supreme in the automotive world. While car collectors have existed for over a century, stamp collectors date back even further.
Oh my God,
the first
please.
postage stamps were issued in the 1840s by the British government. In 1856, a shipment of stamps to British Guyana was delayed, forcing the postmaster to issue an emergency batch as a temporary replacement. The provisional stamps were then distributed and quietly forgotten, until 17 years later when a young boy discovered the unusual 1-cent magenta octagon on one of his uncle's old letters. The boy would end up selling the stamp to a collector for 6 shillings. That stamp would go on to become the only surviving copy of the British Guyana 1-cent magenta. Today, it is worth over $9 million. and to the 60 million stamp collectors in the world, no other piece of postage is more valuable.
What?
If stamps are one of the oldest fixations for collectors, coins may be the oldest. Evidence of coin collecting dates as far back as ancient Rome. One of the most infamous events in Roman history was the assassination of Julius Caesar. 2 years after usurping the throne, Brutus had several coins minted to commemorate himself literally getting away with murder. In 2020, 2,062 years after its creation, Brutus's gold coin sold for over $4 million. The most expensive coin ever sold happens to be another gold coin, the last gold coin ever minted by the US Treasury. In 1934, President Roosevelt issued an executive order outlawing gold coins from general circulation. The Treasury was ordered to destroy all 450,000.
Guys, I don't want to be getting sensitive or political, but was Caesar a good guy or a bad guy?
Newly minted 1933 double eagles.
Both.
However, a few dozen were illegally rescued and distributed to collectors. Over the next several years, the federal government located, confiscated, and destroyed almost all of the remaining copies. Only one double eagle, acquired by King Farouk of Egypt, managed to evade apprehension. Today, that lone coin survives as the only 1933 double eagle in private possession.
Ooh, okay.
In June of this year, the coin was sold for nearly $19 million, more than 900,000 times its nominal value.
See anything you like?
Yeah, I'll give you $1.50 for this umbrella.
$1.50 for that? But it's an antique.
If you keep something in good condition for long enough, it will eventually be worth a fortune. Antiques provide a treasure trove of rarities and have accounted for some of the most expensive collectibles ever sold. Action Comics #1 marked the beginning of the superhero genre in pop culture. After selling for just 10 cents a piece in 1938, a mint-condition copy of the original Superman is now worth more than $3 million. In the 17th and 18th century, the Stradivari family built string instruments which became world-renowned for their unmatched sound quality.
Superheroes.
In 2008, a Stradivarius cello sold for $20 million, becoming the most expensive musical instrument in the world. Leonardo da Vinci was the most recognizable figure of the 15th century, and he would end up writing what would eventually become the most expensive book in the world. In 1994, Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates purchased Leonardo's Codex Leicester for more than $30 million.
Why?
Unofficially, the most expensive antique ever sold was this 18th century Qing Dynasty vase, selling at auction for over $80 million. It's at this point where the line between antique and artwork starts to blur. Approaching the 9-figure mark, we are beginning to enter the highest echelon of collectability, fine art. For centuries, expensive artwork has served as an enduring symbol of high-class society. For those who are so disgustingly wealthy that the concept of dollars and cents has practically lost all meaning, fine art has often acted as the final frontier of what money can buy. Currently, Alberto Giacometti's Pointing Man is the world's most expensive statue, selling to a collector for $141 million. If you consider jewelry to be art, then the prices become even more staggering.
Oh no.
The infamous Hope diamond necklace has been valued as high as $350 million.
That's a big
and
ass
is generally
stone, though.
considered to be the most expensive gem in the world. However, some sources claim
Chat, I don't know much about this, okay? But didn't the technology advance and now they figured out better, more efficient ways to make the light travel through the rock, and this is like an unoptimized, poorly cut stone, since it's kind of old.
However,
it's probably poorly cut.
Some sources claim that the title actually belongs to the Cullinan 1, the largest colorless diamond ever cut. Part of the British royal family's scepter, it has been valued as high as $400 million, but that's still not as much as the most expensive privately owned painting, Leonardo da Vinci's Salvator Mundi. In 2017, it sold to a collector for $450 million, and may quite possibly be the most expensive single item owned by any individual. Of course, the most expensive painting in the world is another Leonardo da Vinci work, the Mona Lisa, the most famous painting in human history, a work of art so valuable that it defies private ownership. The Mona Lisa is technically property of the nation of France and resides on permanent display at the Louvre. It has an insured value of over $800 million.
When I went there, it wasn't there,
equivalent
dude.
to the GDP of Samoa. Beyond this point, we struggle to accurately appraise items. Anything more valuable starts to enter the realm of
It wasn't
pricelessness.
motherfucking there, dude.
Certain items are deemed so anthropologically important that they transcend collectability and ownership. It's possible that ancient artifacts like the Rosetta
That's
Stone may be
crazy.
more valuable than the Mona Lisa, but we may never know.
Is this hieroglyphs? Damn. That is sick, dude.
Valuable than the Mona Lisa, but we may never know if it really is. It's insightful to discover the point at which we stop pricing items. Based on what we know about how older objects continue to become significantly rarer and more expensive, then this 40,000-year-old flute made out of a mammoth tusk should intuitively be one of the most valuable items in the world. However, the mammoth flute has substantially less fanfare than a Stradivarius violin, despite
come on
the
now.
flute being 100 times older. This exception may reveal what exactly it is we find valuable about collecting rare items.
Welcome to the Batcave. This is the Guinness World Record Batman.
You know what's really
collection.
rare though? An NFT of a green Omer. What the fuck? Why is he green?
Collecting rare items.
Welcome to the Batcave. This is the Guinness
Why is
World
he
Record
green?
Batman collection.
The act of collecting is far from rare. At least a third of Americans collect something. When I was a kid, I used to collect 1/64 scale die-cast NASCARs.
I collected Pokemon cars, Bionicles, Legos, and Playmobiles.
When I was a kid, I used to collect 1/64 scale die-cast NASCARs, and I can truly say that it was one of the most satisfying and rewarding hobbies I've ever participated in. But why exactly do so many of us find collecting so rewarding?
Oh, that's so cool though. Wait a minute. That is actually a cool collection. Wait, no, that's a really sick collection. Are you kidding me? Shields? Lego shields from all. That's really sick, man.
The psychology of collecting is not very well understood.
I have Harry
but
Potter.
our obsession with rarity may result from our brain's innate desire to seek out the extraordinary. The modern day activity of collecting is largely a manifestation of foraging for food in prehistoric times. For our early ancestors, discovering novel and unique forms of sustenance meant a better chance at survival. Thus, our brains adapted to release dopamine whenever we are presented with new extraordinary items. Obtaining food is no longer the satisfying challenge that it once was, and present-day collectors may be attempting to recreate the rush of discovering a new berry in the wilderness. The subconscious desire to recapture our foraging roots may be but a microcosm of a far greater desire to recapture our tribal roots. Today, we live in a very alienating society, a far cry from the tightly knit clans which our ancestors occupied. When we spend $400 million on a painting, or $9 million on a stamp, or $150,000 on a virtual gun, we are not just buying a rare item. In many ways, we are buying into the community that comes with owning a rare item. The act of foraging in prehistoric times was as much of a social event as it was a day-to-day task. It provided people with constant opportunities to demonstrate their usefulness towards their peers. Foraging allowed people to feel valued by the community around them.
30 months.
We now live in an era where
really
the
love
average
you, man,
person has arguably
xQcOW.
never felt less valued. For many, joining a niche subculture is their only way to rekindle feelings of esteem and belonging. For collectors, it's a matter of finding a unified culture, one which truly represents their ideals and motivations. This may help justify why a 400-year-old violin is so much more desirable than a 40,000-year-old flute.
Yeah, it makes sense.
When an item
It makes
becomes
sense,
too old, it loses the cultural relevance that makes it so compelling to us. People don't necessarily pay 9 figures on an original Da Vinci because it's centuries old or aesthetically pleasing. What they are truly paying for is a slice of what Da Vinci represents. They want to attach themselves to the prestige that Leonardo da Vinci's name carries.
Da Vinci?
People admire Da Vinci, Michael Jordan, Superman. Maybe
Me?
if we own an iconic piece of them,
You?
we can be admired too. While the impulse to collect once helped us gather survival resources, today it may be helping us gather social resources, which many are now finding more scarce than food, water, and shelter. For some, collecting rarities is the first step in connecting with others and engaging with an exclusive culture. The rest of us may consider it a waste of money, but for certain collectors, belonging to something meaningful is worth every penny. In addition to belonging, collecting may be attempting to account for another aspect many find sorely lacking from modern society: autonomy. With each passing year, the world around us gets more complex, more chaotic, and more unpredictable. You can't go a few moments without discovering some new threat that you didn't even realize it was possible to worry about. After a while, it all starts to become overwhelming, and most of us end up feeling more and more like riders on the storm.
Jeez,
Collecting may be one
dark.
of our most effective psychological mechanisms at reclaiming autonomy in the face of chaos and uncertainty. Cultivating order out of so many disparate objects can help anchor us to
which one is it?
uncertainty. Cultivating
That one. I have this one.
order out of
And one of these.
so many disparate objects can help anchor us to a more stable state of mind. In this sense, collecting may serve as a therapeutic activity, especially for those who've experienced trauma. It's no wonder why the recent explosion in collecting occurred when most of us were in lockdown, a period when many had never felt more uncertain and isolated. No matter the reason we collect rare items, it's clear that many of us are far better off because of it. And if the past year has shown us anything, it's that collecting isn't going away anytime soon. In the time I've been working on this video, several of its records have already become outdated. The future of collecting is more exciting than ever before.
Cool,
Following the advent of cryptocurrency and digital assets, non-fungible tokens have spawned a whole new genre of collectibles.
Not again, please.
In June of 2017, creative studio Larva Labs released a limited supply of 10,000 unique CryptoPunks for free on the Ethereum network. Each punk was algorithmically generated to have one or more distinct features, with about 100 spawning with a special classification of zombie, ape, or the rarest of all, alien. In March of this year, one of the 9 alien CryptoPunks sold for $7.6 million, becoming the most expensive NFT ever sold. One day later, digital artist Beeple would shatter that record with his composition Everydays, a collage of all 5,000 images that he published over a time span dating back to May 2007. The Everydays NFT was purchased for over $69 million, about 8% the value of the Mona Lisa. A hell of a price to pay for a bunch of worthless pixels.
This is a good video. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the video. Guys, we watched enough.